Thomas had always been a quiet man. He lived on a small, lonely ranch at the edge of a vast, open plain. The land stretched out as far as the eye could see, golden fields meeting the horizon in the soft glow of morning sunlight. The wind whispered through the tall grasses, and the occasional hawk soared high above, circling in wide, lazy loops. For Thomas, life was peaceful, but it was also lonely. He spent his days tending to the cattle, repairing fences, and taking care of the ranch. The routine was comforting, but deep down, he often wished for companionship, someone who could share his quiet life, someone who could understand him without words, someone who could see the gentle man behind the shy exterior. Thomas was shy, perhaps painfully so. He had never been very good with people, especially women. He would blush at a glance and stumble over his words, even when speaking to someone who meant no harm. His shyness wasn't from a lack of courage or kindness, it was just who he was. In town, he was polite, but reserved, greeting neighbors with a nod or a quiet, hello, before retreating to the comfort of his routines. Over the years, his work on the ranch had become both a refuge and a shield. He had grown comfortable with solitude, yet the emptiness of his evenings weighed on him. One chilly autumn afternoon, a letter arrived, its envelope thick and foreign. Thomas stared at it, feeling a mix of curiosity and anxiety. He had never expected anything like this in his quiet life. Inside, he found photographs and a letter from a woman named Anya, a mail-order bride from a faraway land. Her smile was radiant, and her eyes sparkled with a mix of warmth and mischief. The letter was polite but confident, describing her hopes of finding a partner who could share a simple life, someone kind and hard-working. Thomas read the letter over and over, his heart pounding with both excitement and nervousness. He had always dreamed of meeting someone special, but he had never imagined that the dream would reach him in this way. He felt a strange mixture of hope and fear. Could he really meet this woman? Could he open himself to someone completely unknown? The idea terrified him, yet something deep inside him felt drawn to her courage and honesty. Days passed, and Thomas prepared for her arrival. He cleaned the ranch meticulously, repairing fences, mending the small barn, and sweeping the wooden floors until they shone. He bought fresh flowers from the town market, arranging them carefully in a vase by the window. Every detail mattered because he wanted her first impression to be perfect, not just of the ranch, but of himself. He felt an unfamiliar flutter of anticipation, a sensation that made his heart beat faster than it had in years. Finally, the day arrived. Thomas drove to the small bus station at the edge of town, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. The bus came into view, slow and rumbling, and he saw her stepping off. Anya was taller than he had imagined, with a graceful, commanding presence that immediately drew his attention. Her hair flowed in the gentle breeze, and her eyes, bright and lively, scanned the surroundings before settling on him. She smiled, a warm, confident smile that seemed to erase his nervousness just by existing. Thomas stepped forward, trying to find the right words. He stumbled, tripped over a greeting, and then cleared his throat. "Hello. You must be Anya," he managed, his voice a little shaky. "Yes," she replied, her tone gentle but assured. "And you must be Thomas. It's so nice to finally meet you." Her words carried an ease and confidence that made him both nervous and relieved. She extended her hand, and Thomas took it awkwardly, noticing the firmness of her grip, the warmth of her skin, and the kindness in her eyes. The ride back to the ranch was quiet at first. Thomas felt awkward, unsure of what to say, while Anya gazed out of the window, taking in the sweeping plains and the rolling hills. Occasionally, she would glance at him and offer a soft smile, breaking the silence without forcing it. Thomas found himself stealing glances at her, noticing details he hadn't expected. The way she carried herself, the subtle confidence in her posture, the gentle laugh that escaped her lips when she found something amusing. When they reached the ranch, Thomas opened the gate, holding it for her. She stepped out gracefully, her eyes scanning the surroundings with interest and appreciation. "It's beautiful," she said, her voice filled with genuine admiration. "I can see why you love it here." Thomas felt a warmth spread through him at her words. I do. It's simple, but it's my home," he replied, trying to sound more confident than he felt. She nodded, her smile reassuring him that he hadn't embarrassed himself. Anya spent the afternoon exploring the ranch, asking questions about the work and the animals, showing curiosity and enthusiasm. Thomas guided her patiently, explaining the routines, the challenges, and the joys of ranch life. She listened attentively, never interrupting, but her eyes sparkled with genuine interest. Occasionally, she would laugh softly at something he said, and Thomas found himself laughing along, the tension in his chest easing with every passing moment. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the fields, Thomas and Anya sat on the porch, sipping tea. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of grass and earth. Thomas felt a strange mixture of nervousness and excitement. He wanted to say something important, something that would make her feel welcome, but the words caught in his throat. Anya seemed to sense his hesitation. "You don't need to be nervous, Thomas," she said softly. "I'm here to get to know you, not to judge you. We'll take things slowly, together." Her words were simple, yet they carried a weight that Thomas felt deep in his chest. For the first time in years, he felt that he could be himself without fear. The evening ended with a quiet dinner. Anya helped Thomas set the table, laughing when he clumsily dropped a napkin or poured the tea too quickly. The sound of her laughter was like music to his ears, filling the empty spaces of the ranch with warmth. After dinner, they walked through the fields, watching the stars appear one by one in the clear night sky. Thomas felt a sense of peace he hadn't known before, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, his life was about to change. By the end of the night, Thomas realized that Anya was unlike anyone he had ever met. She was bold, confident, and yet kind. Someone who could guide him gently without diminishing him. Her presence was both calming and exhilarating, a combination that left him both nervous and eager. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew that this moment, the arrival of Anya, the beginning of something new, was the start of a journey he was ready to take, despite his fears and uncertainties. As he watched her settle in for the night, Thomas felt a small, hopeful smile spread across his face. The loneliness that had filled his days seemed a little less heavy, replaced by anticipation, curiosity, and a quiet sense of joy. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to dream not just of love, but of companionship, of laughter, and of shared life on the quiet, open plains that he called home. And as the wind rustled through the grass outside, carrying the promise of new beginnings, Thomas realized that his quiet life was about to become something extraordinary. The following days settled into a rhythm that felt both new and comforting for Thomas. Anya woke early with the sun, her energy radiant and contagious. She moved around the ranch with a quiet confidence that fascinated him. Even simple tasks, feeding the animals, checking the fences, or preparing breakfast, seemed to gain a sense of ease and joy with her presence. Thomas watched her closely, admiring the grace in her movements and the genuine care she showed for everything around her. Despite his initial nervousness, Thomas found himself trying harder. He wanted to impress her, not with grand gestures, but through his work, his thoughtfulness, and the small ways he cared for the ranch. He taught Anya how to milk the cows, showing her each step with patience, even when she struggled. She laughed at herself more than once, spilling milk or slipping on the stable floor, and Thomas couldn't help but smile. Her laughter was different from the polite smiles he had seen in town. It was warm, real, and infectious. Anya, for her part, never acted like she was superior or better at anything. She asked questions, listened attentively, and tried her best, learning quickly but never criticizing. She encouraged Thomas in subtle ways, praising his knowledge and skill with a quiet sincerity that made him feel proud of himself for the first time in years. Where he had often felt invisible or awkward, her attention and interest made him feel seen, respected, and even admired. During the afternoons, they would walk through the fields, checking fences and counting cattle. The sun would warm their backs, and the wind would carry the scent of wildflowers and fresh hay. Thomas spoke little at first, unsure of what to say or how to connect beyond simple words. Anya, noticing his hesitation, often started conversations about her life. Before arriving at the ranch, about her childhood, her family, and her dreams. She told stories of her hometown with such vivid detail that Thomas felt as though he had walked the streets with her, met her friends, and shared her experiences. Slowly, Thomas began opening up, telling her about his life on the ranch, his favorite spots in the hills, and the small joys he found in daily routines. He spoke about the animals, the way he cared for them, and how much the land meant to him. At first, the words were awkward, stumbling over each other as he searched for the right way to express himself. But Anya never interrupted, never judged. She simply listened, nodding, asking gentle questions, and smiling at moments of humor or surprise. Her patience gave him confidence. Her interest gave him courage. Evenings became their special time. After finishing chores, they would sit on the porch with cups of tea or hot cocoa, watching the sky shift from gold to pink to deep navy dotted with stars. The silence was never uncomfortable. It was a quiet companionship that Thomas had never known before. Sometimes, she would read aloud from a book she had brought, or they would discuss plans for the next day. Thomas found himself sharing thoughts and feelings he had never voiced to anyone, his hopes, his fears, and even his shy dreams about love. Anya listened without judgment, her eyes warm, her hand sometimes brushing his arm in a comforting gesture. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the distant hills, Thomas felt a strange flutter in his chest. He had watched Anya laughing at something she read in a book, her head tilted slightly, her hair catching the last rays of sunlight. There was something powerful and gentle about her at the same time, and he felt a deep connection he hadn't expected. He wanted to reach out, to say something meaningful, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he simply watched her, silently grateful for her presence. Anya noticed his gaze and smiled softly. "You're thinking," she said gently, tilting her head. "I can see it in your eyes." Thomas flushed but nodded. I guess I am," he admitted. I don't know how to say things sometimes." "You don't need to," Anya replied. "Sometimes just being is enough. We're learning together, aren't we?" Her words carried reassurance, a quiet strength that made him feel he could trust her completely. As the days turned into weeks, Thomas noticed changes in himself. He was speaking more confidently, moving with less hesitation, and even laughing freely in ways he hadn't in years. Anya's presence had a subtle but profound effect on him. He realized he was becoming more patient, more observant, and more open not just with her, but with himself. He began to understand that trust and connection weren't about rushing or performing, they were about being honest, kind, and attentive. Anya also seemed to be changing, in her own way. She was learning the rhythms of ranch life, respecting Thomas's methods, and offering suggestions without ever imposing. She found joy in the simple tasks that had seemed mundane to her at first, milking cows, feeding chickens, or baking bread from scratch. She laughed when things went wrong, celebrated small victories, and approached every challenge with a mix of curiosity and determination. Thomas admired her courage and adaptability, realizing that her boldness wasn't arrogance, it was a willingness to embrace life fully. One afternoon, while repairing a fence together, Thomas felt a moment of hesitation. He struggled with a stubborn nail, and Anya stepped forward, her hands steady, her voice calm. "Here, let me help," she said. She guided his hands gently, showing him the best way to hold the hammer. Thomas felt a surge of gratitude and admiration. Her confidence didn't make him feel small. It made him feel supported. I don't know what I'd do without you," he admitted quietly, almost embarrassed by his own vulnerability. "You'd manage," she said with a soft laugh. "But we're better together, aren't we?" Her words, simple as they were, filled Thomas with warmth. He realized that this partnership of trust, patience, and care was what he had been longing for all along. The nights continued to be a time of quiet reflection and subtle connection. Sometimes, they would sit in the barn, watching the moonlight spill across the hay, listening to the soft sounds of animals settling in for the night. Anya would talk about her dreams of learning more about the ranch, of trying new recipes, or even exploring the surrounding countryside. Thomas would share stories from his childhood, his first memories of helping his father on the land, and the small lessons he had learned from a life of quiet labor. Slowly, the emotional bond between them deepened. Trust grew naturally, like the steady rise of the sun over the plains. Thomas felt he could rely on Anya for guidance, comfort, and companionship. Anya, in turn, trusted Thomas to be honest, gentle, and understanding. There was a rhythm to their days, a harmony that came from patience, observation, and mutual respect. It was a quiet love, unspoken yet powerful, growing with each shared task, each laugh, and each quiet glance across the fields. Even the simplest moments became memorable. Thomas remembered the time Anya tripped on a small stone while gathering firewood, laughing as she steadied herself. He remembered their first shared meal of fresh bread she had baked herself, the pride in her eyes when he complimented her. He remembered the nights sitting on the porch, sipping tea, as the stars emerged one by one, feeling an unfamiliar sense of peace. Each moment, however small, became part of the tapestry of their growing connection. By the end of the second week, Thomas realized something he hadn't expected. He no longer felt the same nervous tension that had gripped him when she first arrived. Instead, he felt a quiet confidence, a sense of comfort in her presence, and a growing excitement for the future. He knew the road ahead would not always be easy. Living together, sharing responsibilities, and understanding each other's quirks would take effort. But he also knew that with patience, honesty, and care, they could build something lasting. A life together filled with companionship, laughter, and trust. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Thomas and Anya stood on the porch, watching the fields bathed in golden light. Anya reached for his hand, a simple gesture that made his heart skip a beat. "We're learning," she said softly. "And I think we're doing well." "True," Thomas nodded, squeezing her hand gently. Yes, we are," he replied. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the beauty of the plains and the warmth of her presence, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope, joy, and a sense of belonging. For the first time, Thomas truly believed that life could be more than quiet labor and loneliness. With Anya by his side, he could imagine laughter, shared work, and companionship filling the days and nights. He could imagine challenges met together, small victories celebrated, and quiet evenings spent in each other's company. Most importantly, he could imagine a future where he was no longer alone, where his shy heart had found someone who understood, encouraged, and cared for him deeply. And in the glow of that autumn evening, as the stars began to appear one by one, Thomas felt a deep, quiet certainty. This was the beginning of something extraordinary. Together, he and Anya were not just surviving, they were learning, growing, and beginning to build a life full of connection, trust, and gentle joy. As the weeks turned into a full month, the bond between Thomas and Anya grew deeper. Every day brought new lessons, shared experiences, and quiet moments that strengthened their trust. Thomas had never known companionship like this. Anya's presence brought a warmth to the ranch that went beyond her smile or laughter. It was a feeling of completeness, of two lives slowly intertwining in harmony. One crisp morning, Thomas woke before the sun, as he often did. He walked to the barn to check on the animals, and to his surprise, Anya was already there. She moved with grace, feeding the chickens and gathering eggs with a careful precision that impressed him. She glanced up and smiled. "Good morning, Thomas. I thought I'd start early today." Thomas nodded, smiling in return. "I didn't expect you up so early." "I like mornings," she said simply, her eyes sparkling. There's something peaceful about being here before the day begins. You can hear everything clearly. The wind, the birds, the quiet. It feels alive. Thomas watched her for a moment, appreciating the way she noticed the small details of life that he had long taken for granted. Her presence made him more aware of the beauty around him, the soft rustle of grass, the way sunlight played on the barn walls, and the gentle movement of animals beginning their day. Her curiosity and attentiveness reminded him why he had always loved the ranch, and made him feel proud to share it with someone who truly appreciated it. Later that day, they set out to mend a fence that had been damaged during a recent storm. Thomas carried the heavy wooden posts, while Anya held the nails and hammer, passing them with care. At first, Thomas felt nervous. His hands shook slightly as he worked, not because of the physical strain but because he felt an unfamiliar sense of vulnerability in front of her. He wasn't used to being watched while he worked, and her gaze made him self-conscious. Noticing his tension, Anya stepped closer and spoke softly. "Take your time, Thomas. There's no rush. We're learning together." Her words had an almost magical effect. Thomas took a deep breath, steadying himself. The weight of the post felt less heavy. The hammer felt easier in his hands, and slowly, he began to work with more confidence. Anya's calm presence gave him reassurance he had never experienced before. He realized that trust was not just about doing things together. It was about feeling safe enough to be imperfect, knowing someone would support you regardless. By mid-afternoon, the fence was repaired, and they stood back to admire their work. Thomas felt a surge of pride, not just for the physical accomplishment, but for the way they had worked together. He looked at Anya and saw her smiling, eyes bright with satisfaction. "We make a good team," she said cheerfully. Thomas smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. "Yes, we do," he replied. For the first time, he felt that partnership could be more than a concept. It could be a reality. They could rely on each other, grow together, and face challenges side by side. As the day turned into evening, they prepared dinner together. Anya had been learning Thomas's favorite meals, and he had been teaching her simple ranch recipes. Their movements in the kitchen were unhurried, almost like a dance. Anya would chop vegetables while Thomas stirred a pot, and they would exchange smiles and small jokes. The laughter that filled the kitchen was different from the polite sounds of visitors or neighbors. It was genuine, a reflection of comfort and familiarity that only comes from shared experiences and mutual understanding. After dinner, Thomas and Anya sat on the porch, watching the stars appear one by one in the clear night sky. The air was cool, carrying the earthy scent of the fields. Thomas felt a nervous flutter in his chest as he glanced at her. There was a moment of silence, peaceful yet charged with unspoken words. He wanted to say something important, but the right words seemed elusive. Anya, sensing his hesitation, reached out and gently touched his arm. "You don't have to say anything," she said softly. "Just being here is enough." Thomas felt his heart swell at her words. Her touch was light, comforting, and reassuring. For the first time, he realized that intimacy was not just about grand gestures or spoken declarations. It was about being present, attentive, and connected. He nodded, feeling a sense of relief and closeness he had never known. In the following days, Thomas noticed subtle changes in himself. He felt braver in expressing his feelings, more willing to take small risks, and more open to learning from Anya. He found himself asking her opinion on matters he would have previously handled alone, and he was pleasantly surprised by how much he valued her perspective. Anya, for her part, continued to guide him gently, encouraging him to trust himself while providing support when needed. One afternoon, as they were mending a small water trough, Thomas struggled to lift a heavy plank. Anya stepped forward, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. "Here, let me help," she said. Together, they lifted the plank, coordinating their movements until it was securely in place. Thomas felt a deep gratitude, realizing that her support didn't diminish him. It made him stronger. "You make everything easier," he said quietly, almost to himself. "You make everything easier too," Anya replied. her voice soft and sincere. Her words were simple, but they carried a weight that touched him deeply. Thomas felt a bond forming, one that went beyond work or daily routines. It was a connection of trust, respect, and shared experiences. As the month progressed, their routine included not just work but shared moments of joy. They would take long walks through the fields, sometimes in comfortable silence, sometimes talking about dreams, memories, or even silly observations. Thomas found himself laughing more freely, feeling lighter than he had in years. Anya's presence was a constant reminder that life could be both simple and extraordinary, filled with small joys that became meaningful when shared. One evening, after a particularly long day, Thomas and Anya sat by the fire outside the cabin. The flames danced in the night, casting warm light on their faces. Thomas felt a nervous excitement building in his chest. He had grown accustomed to the comfort of her presence. But now he realized he desired something more, a deeper connection. A moment of closeness that went beyond conversation or shared tasks. He glanced at Anya, unsure of how to express his feelings. Her eyes met his, calm and encouraging, as if she understood without words. "Thomas," she said softly, "whatever it is, we'll face it together. There's no need to rush." Her words were like a key unlocking his hesitation. He realized that intimacy was not about speed or perfection. It was about patience, understanding, and mutual trust. He felt a courage he hadn't known before, a willingness to be vulnerable because he knew she would be gentle, kind, and caring. That night, as they settled in the cabin, Thomas felt a sense of anticipation and nervousness. He wanted to bridge the gap between them, to take a step toward closeness, but he was unsure of the right way. Anya sensed his tension and reached out, her hand brushing his in a simple, reassuring gesture. "Easy," she whispered. "We'll do this together." Her calm confidence made the fear in his chest melt away. He realized that this moment was not about perfection or performance. It was about trust, patience, and shared experience. Together, they explored the connection that had been growing quietly over weeks of companionship, work, and laughter. The night became a milestone, a shared memory that strengthened their bond and brought them closer than either had expected. In the days that followed, Thomas reflected on the experience with a newfound understanding. He realized that love and intimacy were not about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. They were about patience, communication, and trust. Anya had shown him that connection could grow naturally, gently, and meaningfully. He felt a deep appreciation for her guidance, her patience, and her unwavering kindness. By the end of part 3, Thomas felt transformed. He was no longer the shy, hesitant man who had first met Anya. He had grown in confidence, learning to express himself, to trust, and to embrace the vulnerability that comes with true connection. Anya had become more than a companion. She was a partner, a guide, and a source of joy and strength. Together, they had crossed a threshold, moving from simple friendship and shared tasks to a deeper, more meaningful bond built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. And as the plains stretched out before them, bathed in the soft light of morning or evening, Thomas knew that this journey full of patience, learning, and shared discovery was only just beginning. With Anya by his side, he felt ready to face whatever challenges or joys lay ahead, confident that together they could build a life filled with trust, laughter, and enduring connection. As the weeks passed, Thomas and Anya's lives on the ranch settled into a comfortable rhythm. Every day brought new experiences, small victories, and the quiet joy of companionship. The bond between them had grown into something solid and unshakable, built on trust, patience, and the shared understanding of each other's hearts. Thomas often reflected on how different his life had become since Anya arrived. The quiet loneliness that had filled his days was now replaced by warmth, laughter, and the steady rhythm of shared routines. Anya had fully embraced ranch life. She learned to handle chores with skill and care, tending to animals, repairing fences, and even helping Thomas with tasks he had always done alone. Her presence brought efficiency, energy, and a gentle confidence that Thomas had never experienced before. Yet, She never tried to dominate or change him. Instead, she guided him gently, encouraged him, and offered her ideas with a quiet grace that made him feel valued and respected. Thomas, in turn, found himself growing in ways he had never imagined. He became more confident, more expressive, and more willing to embrace life beyond his comfort zone. Where once he had hesitated and second-guessed himself, he now approached tasks with calm determination, knowing that Anya was beside him to share the effort and the reward. He began to see himself not just as a solitary cowboy, but as part of a partnership built on mutual care and understanding. One afternoon, a sudden summer storm swept across the plains. The sky darkened quickly, and the wind howled through the fields. Thomas and Anya were in the barn when the first drops of rain began to fall. They hurried to secure the animals, checking each pen carefully to ensure the cattle, horses, and chickens were safe. The storm raged for hours, thunder echoing across the plains and lightning illuminating the dark clouds. During the storm, Thomas noticed something remarkable. Anya remained calm, composed, and even cheerful, her presence a steady anchor in the chaos. She directed him calmly, helping him manage the tasks with precision and ease. At that moment, Thomas realized how much he had come to rely on her not just for help with chores, but for emotional strength and reassurance. Her courage, patience, and calmness had become a vital part of his life. After the storm passed, the sky cleared, revealing a breathtaking sunset that painted the clouds in shades of pink, orange, and gold. Thomas and Anya stepped outside, taking a moment to breathe in the fresh, rain-washed air. The ranch smelled of earth, grass, and the faint scent of wildflowers. Thomas felt a profound sense of peace. For the first time, he understood the meaning of partnership. Not just sharing work, but sharing life, weathering storms together, and celebrating small moments of beauty. As the weeks turned into months, Thomas and Anya continued to build their life together. They celebrated small milestones, the birth of a calf, the repair of an old fence, or the successful harvest of a field. Each achievement was a shared triumph, a reminder that they could accomplish more together than they ever could alone. They laughed often, sometimes at the simplest things, sometimes at small mistakes or accidents. The sound of Anya's laughter became a constant comfort to Thomas, a reminder that life was richer when shared with someone who cared deeply. Evenings were their special time. After long days of work, they would sit on the porch, sipping tea or cocoa, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Sometimes they talked about dreams for the future, imagining improvements to the ranch, trips to nearby towns, or even plans to expand their land. Other times, they sat in silence, feeling the quiet companionship that had become one of the most meaningful aspects of their life together. Thomas found that he no longer feared silence. Instead, he cherished it, knowing it was filled with trust, comfort, and understanding. One evening, as autumn approached and the air turned crisp, Thomas felt a wave of gratitude and emotion he could no longer contain. He turned to Anya, taking her hands in his. "Anya," he said softly, "I never imagined my life could be like this. You've changed everything, for the better. I don't know how I would have managed without you." Anya smiled, her eyes warm and gentle. "Thomas, we've grown together. You've changed too. You've become stronger, more confident, more open. We've built this life side by side. I'm proud of you. And I'm grateful for you." Her words filled Thomas with a deep sense of connection. He realized that love was not just about grand gestures or passionate declarations. It was about growth, understanding, and the small, consistent acts of care and support that built a life together. He felt a profound appreciation for Anya, not just for her presence, but for the way she had guided him, encouraged him, and believed in him even when he doubted himself. In the following weeks, Thomas and Anya faced small challenges together. There were days when the work was harder than expected, when weather or animals created unexpected problems, but they approached each challenge with teamwork, patience, and mutual respect. They learned to communicate openly, to express concerns without fear, and to celebrate successes together, no matter how small. Each challenge became an opportunity to strengthen their bond, to deepen their trust, and to reinforce the partnership that had grown between them. One particularly memorable day, they found a stray calf that had wandered from the herd during a windy afternoon. The calf was frightened and weak, and Thomas felt a surge of anxiety. Anya, however, remained calm, guiding him as they coaxed the calf back to safety. Her gentle voice, steady hands, and unwavering patience helped Thomas remain composed. When the calf finally returned to the herd, Thomas felt a mixture of relief and pride. He realized that life's challenges were easier to face with someone who believed in you and stood by your side. As the seasons changed, Thomas and Anya grew closer in ways that went beyond daily routines. They shared stories of their pasts, dreams for the future, and quiet reflections on life. Thomas spoke of his childhood, the lessons he had learned from his father, and the joys of working the land. Anya shared memories of her family, the experiences that shaped her, and the reasons she had chosen this life far from her home. Through these conversations, they discovered shared values, common goals, and a deep appreciation for each other's character. One evening, under a sky filled with stars, Thomas realized that the ranch no longer felt lonely. Every corner, every field, and every animal held memories of shared work, laughter, and care. The quiet evenings, once filled with solitude, were now rich with companionship. Anya's presence had transformed the ranch from a place of isolation into a home filled with warmth, love, and hope. Thomas also noticed changes within himself that went beyond confidence and skill. He had become more patient, more empathetic, and more willing to embrace vulnerability. He learned to express feelings, to trust in shared decisions, and to celebrate the ordinary moments of life. Anya's influence was gentle but profound, helping him grow into a version of himself he had never known, but deeply appreciated. As winter approached, Thomas and Anya prepared for the season together. They stocked firewood, repaired the barn, and ensured the animals were safe and warm. These preparations were more than practical, they were acts of care, teamwork, and shared responsibility. Each chore, each effort, became a symbol of their partnership, a tangible reminder that they were building a life together based on trust, respect, and love. One snowy evening, after finishing their work, they sat by the fire in the cabin. The snow fell gently outside, blanketing the ranch in white. Thomas looked at Anya, feeling a surge of gratitude, admiration, and affection. "Anya," he said softly, "I've never felt like this before. You've made my life richer, happier, complete. I'm so grateful for you." Anya smiled, reaching out to touch his hand. "Thomas, we've grown together, learned together, and faced life together. This is only the beginning. The ranch, the land, our life, it's ours to shape, and I'm happy to share it with you." Thomas felt a profound sense of peace and joy. He realized that their love was not a fleeting feeling but a steady, enduring bond built on patience, understanding, and shared effort. He felt proud not just of the life they had built, but of the man he had become with her by his side. Together, they had created something lasting, meaningful, and full of hope. In the weeks and months that followed, Thomas and Anya continued to grow closer. They celebrated milestones, faced challenges, and enjoyed the simple pleasures of life on the ranch. Each day brought a sense of purpose, joy, and connection. They laughed, worked, and shared their thoughts, building a life that was deeply satisfying and emotionally fulfilling. By the time the first signs of spring appeared, Thomas and Anya had fully settled into their life together. The ranch no longer felt like a solitary place. It was alive with laughter, warmth, and love. Thomas knew that he had found more than a companion. He had found a partner, a friend, and a source of inspiration. Anya, too, had found a home, a life filled with connection, and a man who respected, trusted, and cared for her deeply. Looking out over the plains one quiet evening, Thomas felt a sense of gratitude that filled him from head to toe. He had begun this journey as a shy, solitary man, uncertain of himself and hesitant about the future. Now, he stood as a confident, hopeful man, ready to face whatever life brought, knowing he had someone who would share it all with him. Together, Thomas and Anya had discovered the true meaning of partnership, love, and trust, a life full of shared moments, quiet joys, and enduring companionship. And as the sun set over the horizon, casting warm golden light across the fields, Thomas felt a quiet certainty in his heart. Life, love, and happiness were no longer distant dreams. They were here, alive, and growing every day together.